See here. So first of all, when you talk about cerebellum, we know it is a part of hindbrain, isn't it? So first of all, you try to draw this diagram. So in this diagram, we have three subdivisions, like the parts of the cerebellum, which are functionally subdivided into like spinocerebellum, corticocerebellum, and vestibulocerebellum. Okay, so actually, the gross features of cerebellum I have discussed when we were doing anatomy also. Few points you can do from there also. If you remember, I told you this whole thing is vermis in the middle. In the middle of the vermis, we have a code to remember LCCDFTPUL. Isn't it? Linguna, central lobule, culmen, declive, tuber. Okay, just revise that class once. Okay, so along with that, we have certain lobes, no? So simple lobule, superior semilunar lobule, inferior semilunar lobule, biventral lobule, flocculonodular lobe. Like that, we have certain anatomical subdivisions. So those anatomical subdivisions now functionally they are now classified into these three subdivisions like spinocerebellum. Whatever has been shown in pink color, it comes under spinocerebellum. Okay, the lingula, the central lobule, culmen, simple lobule. Then declive, tuber, and pyramid uvula. So corticocerebellum, the whatever you have like lobulus ensiformis, like superior semilunar lobule and inferior semilunar lobule, nothing but. The last one is vestibulocerebellum, where you have nodule and flocculonodular lobe in anatomy terminology. Flocculonodular lobe. So once you write this, the three subdivisions like see here, again there is a table here. See what you have to write, you should know. Draw that and just subdivide it into three sub things. Then yes, better. This one. So the components and connections of functional division of cerebellum, you have to note it from here, from this table. Make a note. So vestibulocerebellum, the last one, what was there, like flocculonodular lobe. So it has afferent connections like vestibulocerebellar tract. Okay, that means from the vestibular apparatus, that tract is coming to the cerebellum. From the cerebellum, it is going to the like to and fro. The fibers are in two directions: cerebello-vestibular tract and fastigio-bulbar. That means this particular part of cerebellum is chiefly concerned with the mechanism of equilibrium. Then we have this spinocerebellum. These are the components. Okay, what we have just seen with three different colors, that pink, blue, and all. Then what are the different tracks? We have afferent connections are given and efferent connections. If you remember, there also we had superior, middle, and inferior, three like peduncles, isn't it? Superior cerebellar peduncle, middle cerebellar peduncle, inferior cerebellar peduncle. If you like superior cerebellar peduncle is nothing but connection between midbrain and cerebellum. Middle cerebellar peduncle is nothing but connection between pons and cerebellum. Inferior is between medulla and cerebellum. Here you will have to and fro directions of fibers. And if you remember, I gave you one code. Can anybody tell me what is the code I gave you for this inferior cerebellar peduncles? Their apparent connections are more. And I gave you one code to remember easily. POP CV star, isn't it? Paraolivocerebellar, olivocerebellar, hmm? Cerebello-reticular, cuneo-cerebellar, vestibulocerebellar, stria medullaris, external arcuate fibers.
Can you say the code once more?
POP CV star. This is from
Okay, ma'am.
Chaurasia textbook beta. Inferior cerebellar
Okay.
peduncle. POP CV star.
Okay, ma'am.
The table is given in Chaurasia. So the table will help you to write so many connections in fact. So those all connections are given here, whatever we studied there. Spinal, or you can frame your own code also, but these connections are very important. Okay. So that is first of all you give the components, you give the apparent and efferent connections. Once you give apparent, efferent, and but this also I gave you like basically when you see the cut section of cerebellum, we have gray matter outside and white matter inside. But inside the white matter also we have collection of gray matter, that is the cell bodies of the neurons, so which are called as the nuclei. So we have four nuclei, no? For this also we have given one code DEFG, cerebellar nuclei. Do you remember? Dentate nucleus, emboliform nucleus, nucleus fastigius, and nucleus globosus. DEFG. DEFG.
Yes,
Dentate,
ma'am.
that is. So these are the nuclei. That means from the nuclei also you will get certain connections. They receive and also they give. Now, once you know these basic subdivisions, see this is our physiological subdivision beta. You should first draw this diagram for your answer. Okay, you need not give the parts of vermis because this is already dealt in anatomy and physiology. People do not bother about, but still, if you remember, you can write if time permits. Then physiological and functional subdivisions, you give this. So whatever colors are given there, under that, what parts are included in vestibulocerebellum, spinocerebellum, and corticocerebellum. Okay. Then now functional anatomy is nothing but histology. If you remember in histology of cerebellum, we had MPG layer, no, in the
Yes, ma'am.
outside.
Molecular Purkinje granular.
Very good. So that is found in the gray matter and below which we have white matter, molecular, Purkinje and granular layer. So the important cells what we have here are these Purkinje cells. These are the specialized neurons what we find in case of cerebellum. Okay, the chief function of cerebellum is actually coming into action because of the presence of these specialized cells. Okay, you need not talk about the details of this photo because there is a lot to speak, in fact, in this answer. So you will not have that much time. In fact, this is nothing but the histological features which have been discussed here. So you can also not required, 100% not required. Interneuronal activity of cerebellum, you can skip this, no doubt. This table is very important. You should write the subdivisions and also the connections. So once you know the connections, actually three different pictures are given. At least one picture I want you to practice. Suppose this is vestibulocerebellum. If you just check this vestibulocerebellum, it is present in flocculonodular lobe. No? So afferent connection is vestibulocerebellar tract and cerebellovestibular tract. That means that from the vestibular apparatus to the cerebellar nuclei, you will see the fibers are coming. That means in two directions you can draw. We have afferent connections also shown. We have efferent connections also shown. Again, the nuclei what you are finding are DEFG only. We are finding what are the various nucleus. See, emboliform is given, globosus is given,
Emboliform
uh,
dentate lobos fastigium.
fastigious. Okay, are you finding from the vestibular apparatus the fibers are coming there? Isn't it? Again, from these nuclei, the fibers will also go to the vestibular apparatus. That is the meaning of vestibulocerebellar and cerebellovestibular. Okay, so like that, at least one is fastigio-bulbar tract, beta, this one. Okay, so at least three different pictures are given, beta. Drawing three will be very difficult because time won't be sufficient. These are the connections from spinocerebellum. Anyhow, connections you are writing in tabular form, and to draw everything becomes difficult. At least choose one among these three. Okay, this is for vestibulocerebellum diagram. This is spinocerebellum, and the next we have is corticocerebellum. Okay, so it's
Corticocerebellum, you can draw it. It's easy.
better. Corticocerebellum is the most advanced one which is found in human beings. Better go with corticocerebellum. Okay, so you show all the connections whatever we have in the corticocerebellum. Okay, so whatever you choose, even you can go with the spinocerebellum if you don't find it complicated. So now once you know these three subdivisions, then about each you should write. Functional component is very, very important. Now first of all, we are starting with vestibulocerebellum, also called as archicerebellum. That means this is the primitive part of phylogenetically, it is the oldest part of cerebellum. That means it is found in all living creatures which are vertebrates. Okay, so that means even in case of animals also we will find this flocculonodular lobe because in them also we will see the maintenance of posture, balance and equilibrium. So vestibulocerebellum is concerned with this. Afferent efferent connections are just elaborated. Okay, then what you have to do is you have to come to functions. This you have to write in detail. You can put a tick in your textbook. Okay, connections you can give in tabular form, but functions of each vestibulocerebellum, spinocerebellum, and the corticocerebellum we have to write in detail in physiology. Okay, give the first that blue pink diagram, then table of connections, then one of the diagrams showing the connections, then functions of each of these three vestibulo, spino, and cortico. So when you talk about vestibulo, we know it is a primitive in development which is controlling tone, posture, and equilibrium. Okay, so it sends information regarding gravity, linear movement, angular acceleration through vestibulocerebellar tract. So these are general, very simple information like whatever muscle tone, movements, that is all checked by these connections, the vestibular apparatus. Okay, vestibulocerebellar, cerebellovestibular type of connections. Then comes spinocerebellum. So spinocerebellum is connected. Spino means from the spinal cord it is having the connection. So it is major receiving area of the cerebellum for sensory inputs. Okay. So for the maintenance of muscle tone, again once you write small introduction and give the connections in the form of table and diagram, then you have to write in detail about this. Okay, functions of the spinocerebellum. It is also concerned with the regulation of tone, posture, and equilibrium. That means it is the chief area where all sensations are being received. No, that's why. So it's a receiving area for tactile proprioceptive. What is proprioceptive? When you close your eyes and then you identify some object, this as mouse, and you call it as proprioceptive. Okay, no, proprioceptive is position sense better. Okay, position sense, you are not looking at your feet but still you can see, tell whether it is flexed or extended. Okay, that is proprioceptive impulses. Tactile receptors, tactile localization, all these functions are controlled by this spinocerebellum. Then, as Imad said, it's better we go with corticocerebellum picture, and I said, of course, it is very good also because this is the part which is highly advanced and it is seen in human beings. It's also called as neocerebellum, largest part of cerebellum because it is in connection with cerebral cortex. Okay, that's why you can call it as cerebrocerebellum also called as neocerebellum. So whatever you see, human beings are much more advanced when you compare with lower animals. Though lower animals can do all muscle activities, tone, posture, equilibrium, all functions, sexual functions, reproduction, everything, but still we are highly advanced because we have certain higher centers developed in human brain, among which corticocerebellum is one part because it has connections with cerebrum. Okay, so it is concerned with planning, programming, coordination of skilled movements. Suppose if you are playing cricket and you are trying to catch a ball, you just move in such a direction like you do not miss the catch, isn't it? That means that's what is called as, at the moment we can do planning, programming, and our muscles are moving. Okay, accordingly, that's what are called as coordinated skilled movements. They are all controlled by this corticocerebellum. Okay, so corticocerebellum components we have already seen in the form of table. The same thing you can elaborate. Okay, and functions, actually if anything is asked or not, basically usually the corticocerebellum only will be asked most of the times in detail, and we should talk in detail about the functions of this corticocerebellum. See, many functions are given. See, it is concerned with integration and regulation of well coordinated muscle activities. A simple catching of a ball, I said, during cricket, that is one a best example of muscular activity which is well coordinated. Okay, because it has afferent connections with cerebral cortex. That means here the connections are starting in the cerebrum, passing via cerebellum, going back to cerebrum. So that means it is like a circuit round. Okay, so there is a flow chart also given for us to understand this better. Okay, the table 150.4 is there. Okay, this is one table which gives everything, but in corticocerebellum functions, damping, I'll tell you these movements. Before that, you'll see these connections better. And I want you to write this flowchart also. Cerebello-cerebral circuit. Okay, that means the connections are actually starting in the cerebral cortex, area number 4 and 6. Okay, they pass through pontine nucleus, dentate nucleus of cerebellum. That means via pons they have reached cerebellum, via midbrain, that is red nucleus and thalamus, they have gone back to cerebrum. That's why what is the word used? Cerebral circuit. Okay, so that will help in well advanced integration, regulation of well coordinated muscular movements. Okay, so that is. Then, see here, this is summary chart of everything in fact. Vestibulocerebellum for controlling of vestibular apparatus, spinocerebellum. This you can write if 3 marks question comes. This table is what are the functions of cerebellum. Then just give this small table subdividing cerebellum into these 3 components and give the functions. Okay. And to elaborate here, see damping action. What is damping action? See, exaggerated muscular activity is dampened. So suppose if you are trying to lift a water bottle, you are so much involved in subject or something or watching TV or something, you forgot the bottle is empty. Okay, and you are putting the pressure as though the bottle is full. Okay, so that means the more energy is utilized. The opposite thing happens when you consider it is empty and you are using less energy. Something like that it happens, no? So damping action is prevention of exaggerated muscular activity. That means we are using the amount of energy which is particularly designed to perform that particular activity. Okay, and whatever movements which are not required, they are just calmed down. That's what is called as damping action. Okay, so this will help in smooth coordinated activities of our muscular movements. Okay, decreases the amplitude of mechanical oscillations. So like that many examples are there. Then control of ballistic movements. You should have seen ballet dancers. You should have also seen people who walk on a rope by holding a stick like this. Okay, that means what? Their equilibrium is perfectly maintained because of the normal functioning of cerebellum. Okay, and the ballistic movements are rapid alternative movements which take place in different parts of the body. For example, you do this pronation, supination also we can do fast because of our cerebellum is working normally. Okay, so if it is not working, then what is that condition, clinical condition? Dystidochokinesia. We will see in clinical aspect of cerebellum. Okay, timing and programming of movements. Best example is you are catching a ball. Okay, within fraction of seconds you will move in such a way that you will not allow the ball to miss. No? That is your timing and your programming. That is all controlled by cerebellum. Servo mechanism in the sense, suppose if you are writing, you are not sitting like a statue and writing. That means you will just facilitate yourself, you bend over and you fold your hand, you keep yourself comfortable in such a way like you are facilitating that type of muscular movement. That's what is called as servo mechanism. Okay. Then comparator function. That means one example what I told you, empty water bottle, full water bottle. Okay, you will just, your brain compares how much energy has to be expended. So like that, all advanced type of functions are actually controlled by cerebellum. Okay, then, so after that we have applied physiology. So under applied physiology, we have cerebellar lesions. So all these functions, whatever you have studied till now, so they all will be damaged in case of if there is any disturbance in the cerebellar activities, cerebellar lesions. Okay. So like atonia, what is atonia? The muscle tone is very much reduced because we know tone, posture, equilibrium, that is all controlled by cerebellum. So suppose if this is damaged, the muscle tone also will be gone. Okay. Then attitude. Do you remember I told you one thing like experimental animals, decerebrate rigidity. Cat caricature of cat, decerebrate rigidity.
Yes, ma'am, and spinal shock.
In experimental animals, we suppose if we
So,
cut
decorticate animals when cortex
decortic,
is removed.
we are cutting all the connections. The cat is in a typical caricature. I told you, if you disturb the movement, the body cannot become, it cannot be brought back to normal. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
that means a particular attitude of the body is actually well maintained by the normal connections of cerebellum. Okay, so muscle, these are all simple things, but are deviation movements, deep reflexes will be lost, okay, and the equilibrium also will be gait disturbances, drunken like gait will be observed. Gait is manner of walking, okay. So the other disturbances of movements, coordination of activities, lack of coordination between different groups of muscles. Our antagonist and synergist muscles are working in equilibrium, no? So such thing will be gone. Asthenia, muscle weakness, dysmetria, inability to check exact strength and duration of muscle contraction required for any voluntary act, that is gone. Okay? Either there will be excessive movement, hypermetria, or there will be less movement, that is hypometria. Intention tremor, that means as long as person is at rest, there is no shivering. But suppose if he starts writing something or if he is trying to operate his phone, he suddenly starts shivering, something like that. That's what is intention tremor. Okay, astasis, unsteady voluntary movement. Nystagmus to and fro movements of eyeball. Okay, rebound phenomenon. That means person is unable to like attempts to do a movement against resistance. If the resistance is suddenly removed, again the limb is again coming back to the original direction as though it is rebounding, something like this. Dysarthria, disturbance of speech. Adidochokinesia, in the sense person will not be able to do fast pronation and supination movements. Okay, so that is all about cerebellum. I hope you understood. It's a very important, long, lengthy essay better. Okay, cerebellum is very important question. Takes time for you to study, but I want you to study this. Okay, then we have next question is insulin. Okay, and diabetes mellitus. In fact, we know so many facts about it. Ritika, can you tell me about insulin, endocrine system?
It helps in glucose uptake by the cells.
Okay, very good, better. Source?
From the beta cells of the pancreatic islets of Langerhans.
And action in Ritika told us. Okay. What are the other hormones coming from islets of Langerhans of pancreas?
Alpha cells of pancreas secrete glucagon.
Mm. Beta cells, insulin. Then any other cells we have?
What, ma'am?
Any other cells also do we have?
For
Alpha?
secretion of insulin.
No, no. In general, pancreatic islets I'm asking. Pancreatic islets of Langerhans. What are
Ma'am,
the
alpha cells secrete glucagon.
beta cells secrete insulin? Any other cells I'm asking?
Insulin.
Any do we
Oh,
have?
okay. Enterochromaffin cells.
We have delta cells also.
Okay,
Secreting
delta cells.
somatostatin, no?
Somatostatin. Okay.
Okay, now our question is this, isn't it? So pancreatic, just a minute. So we are now talking about insulin, right? So let us talk about insulin. It has come as an essay question. So as Imad told us, we have islets of Langerhans like alpha cells, glucagon, beta cells, insulin, delta cells, somatostatin. Apart from that, we have F cells, RPP cells, which secrete pancreatic polypeptide. So source is beta cells, half-life is how much beta? Just 5 minutes. Okay, it's made up of 51 amino acids. Molecular weight is 5 lakh 5,800. Normal levels of plasma also you try to remember 10 micro units per milliliter. So synthesis, you can just give like it is actually synthesized in the form of pre-proinsulin, which is converted to proinsulin, then peptic cleavage, then insulin. That means it is something like precursors, isn't it? Zymogens, so which are in active form. Then again they are converted to active form. Okay, so now what is the basic function of insulin? As Ritika told us, basic function of insulin is it's a hormone which helps in the transport of glucose from the GIT. Once it is entering into the blood circulation, insulin transports the glucose to the concerned tissues for the purpose of synthesis of ATP. The only hormone which reduces blood glucose in our body is insulin. Very important hormone. All the other hormones, whatever we have in our body, they are all having tendency to
Increase blood
increase.
glucose.
But this is the only hormone which has the tendency to decrease blood glucose. Okay, beta. So whatever Ritika told us, it is given in this, like increases transport of glucose by the cells. Okay, by making use of certain receptors and transporter mechanisms, promotes peripheral utilization of glucose. It also promotes the storage of glucose, that is glycogenesis. It prevents the breakdown of glycogen, that is inhibits glycogenolysis. Okay, it inhibits gluconeogenesis also. It will not allow the non-carbohydrate sources to be converted to glucose. Okay, thus insulin decreases. Overall, the blood glucose levels are decreased. This is summary. By facilitating the transport and uptake of glucose by the cells, increasing the utilization of glucose by the cells, increasing the storage of glucose by converting into glycogen in the liver and muscle, inhibiting glycogenolysis and inhibiting. The same thing is elaborated here. Then what does it do on protein metabolism? It was synthesis and storage of proteins. It's good only, no? It is a, whatever you have studied for growth hormone. Under growth hormone, the protein metabolism we have studied, no? That means it promotes replication, transcription, translation, promotes the protein synthesis, helps in the uh, anabolism of protein. Similar type of functions you can write here, beta. That is for protein metabolism. Then after that, on fat metabolism, stimulates the synthesis of fats. It also increases the storage. It is quite opposite to what we have studied for growth hormone. No? Growth hormone, you remember it has, actually it was mobilizing free fatty acids so that the fatty acids are utilized by the tissues. Always try to correlate with one hormone thoroughly so that it will be as though it is similar to that hormone, or you need to completely change as though those are antonyms. Okay.
Okay,
So,
ma'am.
so insulin stimulates the synthesis of fat, also increases the storage of fat in adipose tissue. Okay. Then on growth, like along with growth hormone, it is also promoting, because you see
Yeah,
anabolic action on.
insulin like growth factors are also
Uh,
secreted.
yeah, very good. Okay. See, we can also demonstrate by just removing both the pituitary and also the pancreas in an experimental animals and then check for the growth. So basically the growth will be retarded. So that animal experiment is actually horse animal. Generally we don't do such experiments. Nowadays those are all banned. Okay, fine. Now, do you remember when we were doing action, mode of action of hormone? Simple pictures also were given. I'll take you to that picture. That is. So, like any hormone, the mode of action, it will have certain receptors, right? And the cell membrane or nuclear receptors. It will bind with those particular receptors, enter into the cytoplasm, enter into the nucleus, promote transcription and translation. Let's see with the help of diagram. This is the diagram. Isn't it? Now, insulin, is it a protein hormone or not? Yes, it is a polypeptide protein
Yes,
hormone.
ma'am.
Huh. So,
Polypeptide hormone.
yeah, very good. So, suppose if this hormone is synthesized from the islets beta cells, once it is released, see here, suppose if it is going to its target cells, it has certain receptors on the cell membrane. So, the insulin comes and binds with the receptors here. So, once it is entering inside the cytoplasm, it is activated by cyclic AMP, CAMP, that is second messenger, and it is again activated enzymatically. So finally, any hormone, whether it has membrane receptors or nuclear receptors or cytoplasmic receptors, finally what do? They will bring about transcription, then translation, and then protein synthesis. Okay, this is a very simple way to understand the mechanism of like how these hormones are acting in fact. Either it is insulin or growth hormone or catecholamines, that is adrenal medullary hormones, epinephrine, norepinephrine, thyroid hormones, steroid hormones. What are those we have? Estrogen and
Ma'am, can you just
progesterone.
repeat the last point? My thing just.
For growth hormone, okay, for adrenal medullary hormone, for insulin, we can write this mechanism only. Okay, for
Okay, ma'am.
thyroid hormone, steroid hormones are estrogen, progesterone. Okay, and do you remember corticosteroids coming from adrenal cortex? Those are also steroid hormones. They will have receptor. That means the single picture will help us to understand mode of action based on where the receptors are present. Okay, so now let's go back to 415 page. Yes, madam. So that is quite easy, no? Here, like picture is little big and see, this is actually cell membrane only, and over the cell membrane we have receptors with the help of which insulin binds and it comes inside the cytoplasm, and then it will show its activity of transcription, translation, and helps in the formation of protein, body building mechanism. Okay. So regulation of, I will tell you in general, regulation of insulin secretion, see whenever we are eating food. So 2 hours after eating food, what happens? The blood glucose levels will start rising. So whenever blood glucose levels are starting to rise, immediately the beta cells of islets of Langerhans will release insulin. Okay, and it will start transporting the glucose to the cells so that the blood glucose levels are not shooting up. And once the transporting of glucose is finished, then what happens? Gradually, glucagon will come up because glucagon will not allow the glucose to be transported to the tissue. Glucagon increases blood glucose. That means these two hormones, they work in balance in such a way that they always maintain blood glucose levels constant. The post-lunch blood glucose is usually ranging from 120 to 140 milligrams per deciliter. Fasting is usually 80 to 100. Fasting 80 to 100, post lunch is 120 to 140. That is regulated by the insulin, how it is released into the blood circulation. Okay, so that is all written here. It is, you just read like a story, you will easily understand. These are not actually tough, but okay, it actually finishes here only. Glucagon has come next. Then we will talk about you can just have a look like what is the difference between insulin and glucagon. Whatever we have studied for insulin, quite opposite you will have for glucagon. But suppose, for example, hypoglycemia, if it is released in excess, insulin, but glucagon, if it is released in excess, it will lead to hyperglycemia. Okay, so like that, very simple comparative picture it is. Now coming to
Ma'am, what is
diabetes,
the half-life of this?
5 minutes, no better.
5 minutes, okay. Growth hormone, 20 minutes, right?
20 minutes it is.
Okay.
Okay, but see here, no, diabetes mellitus is quite burning problem in our society, better. Okay, especially type 2 diabetes, because people who have sedentary life, they usually suffer with diabetes mellitus. I think the link will go in less than 1 minute. I will resend join fast immediately. Okay. So,
Okay, ma'am.
type 2 diabetes, people who are sedentary, having sedentary life and obese, generally what happens, insulin, though it is released, but still it is not sufficient to maintain the blood